everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Raphael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Raphael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Zack, thank you so much for joining me on Coaching Call. How are you, my friend?
Raphael, never better. Awesome to be with you today. Thanks for the invite, man.
Oh yeah, looking forward to it. I really, when you and I connected the first time, I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. I know it. And you're doing something, really exceptional. But before we get into what you're doing, how you're changing lives, I want to know about little Zack. When you were young, 5, 6, 7, where'd you grow up? What were you doing? Who were your first influencers, if you will?
Little Zack was in Indianapolis, Indiana. Grew up at the crossroads of America. And yes, love the Indy 500. Went every year with my best friend, Joel Allen. Awesome memories going to the track and watching the race. Played a lot of golf when I was young, Raphael.
Really?
Actually, my dad was a golfer, and I remember it was Easter. I think maybe at age 6 or 7, I got my first set of real clubs. And they were shorts, child-sized golf clubs, and it's like the best Easter I ever had. Got my first set of golf clubs, and as far as influencers at the time, people that really spoke into my life, obviously my dad, he was an engineer. He paved the way for me to fall in love with engineering and technology, which is still a part of my story and my coaching today. And there's more to that story we'll probably get into today. Mm-hmm. And then, the people right around me, just great friends, great family. We were really connected. My mom was really good about making sure we always had time to go visit my grandparents, go visit my aunts and uncles. We'd do vacation every summer with the whole family, 25 people all in a house on the beach at Hilton Head Island and those things. So those were the main influences, man. It was school, it was family, friends, and I had a great childhood. I was really blessed.
Oh yeah, that sounds like fun. Especially the fact that you got to go out and be outdoors, right? As a child.
Oh yeah. 100%.
So were you one of the kids that rode on the golf carts, or were you running behind it?
Well, I'll tell you a story. I was in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I might have been, 8 years old. And my uncle Daryl, very skilled golfer, was a member at a country club down in Chattanooga, a really nice place. And we were visiting them. And my uncle Daryl brought me along to just play 9 holes with him. And I didn't even have my golf clubs with me, but I went with him and just kind of watched him play and hit a few balls. And he let me drive the cart. And at the time I could barely reach the pedals. Okay. And so I'm driving the golf cart and I'm getting pretty good at it. And he goes to hit his ball and he says, hey, meet me. You drive the cart around, meet me on the other side of the green, and we'll move on. You'll go to the next hole. And I get in the cart and hit the gas. And Raphael, the golf cart path kind of went down a hill and then took a sharp left. And earlier that day, it had rained. And so the cart path was a little bit slick. There was some mud. And I started to go down this hill, and I kind of fell forward in the seat, and I smashed the gas pedal all the way down. And so I'm flying down this hill, and I lose control of the golf cart. And I try to make that left turn, and instead of turning, I go flying out the side of the cart and skidding across the pavement. The golf cart goes into the woods, and I'm covered in mud. The golf cart's damaged, and my uncle comes running over, just like, what happened? So to answer your question, I did ride in the cart, but I also got myself into some trouble at a young age.
I love the way you painted that story. I can only see you going like, oh no.
Oh my goodness.
And falling forward and just have no choice because the weight bearing on that gas pedal. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And then by then you just sort of freaking out, and there's, you can't respond. But oh, my uncle, he got me all cleaned up, took me to the dry cleaners. We washed my clothes, and he made it like nothing ever happened. We didn't even tell my mom about the incident, and until later. It was like our little secret that this happened. It was one of the highlight stories of my whole childhood. It was really
I
fun.
hear you. Did you get ice cream? What? Come on.
Actually, actually, he bought me a candy bar, and you could picture this, Raphael. Here's like an 8-year-old boy in a car with a towel wrapped around him because my clothes were being washed inside by my uncle, eating a candy bar. Like, what a weird scene, right? Like today, somebody would call the cops.
This kid.
Exactly. Yeah, somebody just abducted this kid. He's eating a candy bar in the front seat. Oh man, such a good. I've never told that story before on a podcast, Raphael. I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, you know what? Because this is what we do here, man. We get down, we get to know the influences. We get to know because you're making a difference in people's lives, but for you to know and understand that, you have to respect the people who made a difference in your life, right?
Amen. It's good.
So that happened at 8. I'm only imagining you. There's more good stories coming up. Tell me about some other things that happened in your childhood that may have triggered something. I know your dad's an engineer. Also, what kind of engineer was he or is he?
Yeah, my dad's an electrical engineer, and went far, PhD level education. He didn't actually stand for his dissertation and finish that PhD, but brilliant electrical engineer and doing circuit design during the boom of telecommunications when AT&T and Bell Labs and everything was exploding in telecommunications in the U.S. and really had a lot of respect for him, a lot of pride for the work that he did. And as a result, he brought a lot of technology home at a young age. We had all the cool stuff, computers before any of my friends had computers. We had a laptop before. I mean, you call it a lap. I mean, this thing was a brick, right? Like some laptop. It was huge. You needed a table to hold the weight of it. Car phones and all that. So really blessed to have that. But to answer your question, moments that made me as a kid, and pulling the thread further with my dad, Raphael, when I was 13, the day after Christmas, my dad disappeared from my life. Basically from that point on. And, I was actually under the knife, so to speak. I'd had my tonsils and adenoids taken out a couple days prior. So I'm on the couch with a bag of frozen peas on my face because I'm swollen from this surgery, taking a nap. My sisters are upstairs. My mom comes home from, shopping for the day, returning some Christmas gifts and other things. And, suddenly there's all these people at our house. And I was still in this kind of, medicated stupor, if you will, and not really confused about what's going on. And my dad had left a note for my mom that he wanted to get a divorce and that he was leaving. And he had packed his things already, loaded the car, and he just disappeared right in the middle of the day when nobody was aware what was going on. And I didn't see him for months after that. We did have some, court-ordered visits and things. I saw him some during, high school, but for the most part, since that time, I've had zero relationship with my father. And so, that moment really set the tone in a big way for how my high school years unfolded. And, we'll go further into my story, but it's still a big part of why I'm so passionate about the work I do now. But
I can only imagine you felt abandoned
oh, for sure.
by somebody that you adored and you thought was super cool, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, I had no idea that there was anything wrong. I really loved my dad. He was a good father. Like he taught me a lot of things that I still lean on to this day. I don't have any, ill will towards my dad at this point. I've forgiven him for that. But abandonment and just so much confusion, what's going on. And then the depression that followed, a time of really dark depression for me. Fell into a lot of isolation, didn't really want to connect with anybody, almost silent for 6 months. I mean, I just had
Wow.
nothing to say to anyone.
Mm.
And this was the second half of seventh grade, which middle school is hard enough as it is.
Right.
But yeah, that was a really trying time.
Mm. And you said your sisters were upstairs. How many siblings do
I
you
have
have?
2 older sisters. So I'm the youngest of 3, and we're about 2 years apart. So I
Mm.
was 13, my sister Lindsay was 15, and Amanda was 17 at the time.
Mm. So there wasn't like that, was that close knit relationship with your sisters? Did they like reach out to you, find out what's going on, how, because they may have been going through similar,
Oh, we were really
aspects of,
close. I think
yeah.
compared to a lot of siblings that I see, knew then or see
Mm.
now, we were really close.
Mm.
But we were all processing that
Separately.
loss in our own way. Yeah. And so it's not, we definitely connected, but not in a way of supporting each other, more
Mm.
just in like kind of we're in this together, everybody's suffering kind of experience.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, when something like that happens and you have siblings, there's different ways that people do handle it. One is, they say, yeah, we're here together, but in reality, everybody's going through their own pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we can start to say, hey, let's start to share that pain that you're going through. And I'm sure that did not necessarily happen for you guys because you went through 6 months, man. That's a long time. How did you come out of it?
Well, I give my mom a huge amount of
Mm.
love and credit for showing up as an amazing mom at a time where she was going through incredible pain in her own life. But for one, she made the hard decision to make us go to counseling and therapy as a family. All 4 of us would go. As kids, the 3 of us would go, and then individually we would go. And I wanted nothing to do with that. And she said, it's not a choice. You're going to go. And if you want to sit on the couch and say nothing for the whole session, that's your choice. But you're going to be there. And I'm really glad she did. That was
Mhm.
super important for me to have that professional support to process and deal with what was going on and the grief of that time. But the other thing that really made a difference was, that second half of seventh grade, that 6 months was a really, challenging and dark time, a depressed time.
Mhm.
But my mom made another really wise and important decision at the time to change what school I was going to.
Mm.
So she pulled me out of the public school system in Indianapolis that I was in and enrolled me in a private Christian high school or middle school and high school. It was all on one campus,
Right.
starting in 8th grade. And my best friend, who I mentioned earlier that I used to go to the 500 with, Joel, he attended that school. And I knew a couple other people who went there. And making that change in 8th grade, while the first couple of months of a new school and making new friends was really difficult, that was a huge blessing for me to have a shift in the environment. So all of the friends that I had known before who sort of saw me go through that depression and were confused and what's going on, and I lost a lot of relationships and just felt confused about how to be in that
Right.
place. I was able to get a totally fresh start in a place where, on the whole, every teacher, every student, everybody was really kind, really cared, a lot of love for each other and for me. And it was such an unexpected change, to have teachers asking me really, important personal questions about how I was doing and extending additional support toward me and making friends who really cared at a level none of my other friends had. It was awesome. So that was probably the 2 things that my mom forced upon me. I didn't want it, but looking back, it's like, wow, that was huge to change the trajectory of my life at that time.
Yeah, that had to be very pivotal for you, you know. When you think about the changes that we go through in our lives, and I call them stages, right? Because you went through different stages, like with, your dad having fun and getting to know this, and then feeling the abandonment, and then the depression, and then finding new hope, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And man, God bless your mom, really.
Yeah. Amen.
because not only did she see the insight, or she had the insight to see what you needed, but she put you in a place where other people were going to lift you up. She put you in a Christian, you said Christian school,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody, if you think about it, everybody's on the same page there,
that's right.
right?
That's
When
right.
you're in public school, we don't know what's going on necessarily with people's faith. And when people, I believe myself that when people have faith, they care more. When people don't know faith, or they don't have a belief, I don't think they care as much, or they're only, and I'm not putting anybody down, but I think it's more selfish. But when we learn to have faith, we can give more. That's just my thought.
Yeah, Raphael, I appreciate that sentiment, and I really, again, we don't. It's not a judgment on anyone, but I've also come to a deep place of belief, and still as a Christian today, that faith is a part of our life journey, whether we choose to admit it or not. And the deeper we connect to that clearly and find the truth there, the more not only does that purpose get bigger than ourselves. So to your point, it's less about me and it's more about what I can give.
Mhm.
But yeah, it changes the way that we love. It changes the way that we live in a big way. And even coaching today, I tell my clients it doesn't matter what your faith background is in relationship to religion. That's not what I'm talking about. But we have faith at the base of our
Mhm.
life mastery pyramid in the coaching that we do. I said it doesn't matter if you're agnostic, if you're an atheist, if you're a Christian, if you're Buddhist. Like what matters is that you are being intentional to understand the role that faith plays in your life. And so
Mhm.
I agree with you. God bless my mom. For me, it helped nurture and nourish my faith as a Christian at that time, and no doubt changed the outcomes. Statistically speaking, going through what I did at that age, it would have been very reasonable or likely for me to get into some really bad behaviors, to
Mhm.
go experiment or do things to cope with that pain in an unhealthy way. And instead, I was able to process that grief and pain in a healthy way, build new, really wonderful relationships, and ended up thriving through high school,
Mhm.
which again, like what are the odds? And I really give my mom credit that if those moves don't happen, you and I are definitely not having this conversation today.
It might be a different
Well,
conversation.
that's true. Yeah, it could be a different story.
Uh, but it's through adversity that sometimes we truly come out on top. So
Mm,
sometimes, that pain that you went through, and realizing that it was not your fault, right? Because a lot of times I think you go through that depression,
mm,
that feeling of abandonment, because we blame ourselves, right? We think it's, what did I do wrong? Meanwhile, you did nothing wrong. And, growing up in my type of childhood, it's very, very cool to listen to you talk about your mom and how she was there for you, and she stepped up when your dad kind of, I don't know your dad's story, and you probably don't fully know it either,
right.
because he did what he thought was right, and you know I'm not going to say kudos to him, but he did what he needed to do for him. Unfortunately, that there's a trail he left, right, behind.
Yeah.
So, in thinking of, you made great relationships, you bonded with this other young man, and you went to the races, and you did all these cool things, and you thrived in high school. Do you know how many people don't thrive in high school? Do you know how many troubled teens we have today? I mean, look at all the school shootings, all the nonsense that's going on. But we need to go back to, listen, I'm not American. I'm South American. I'm not North American. I was born in Colombia. But to me, the Pledge of Allegiance as a kid was huge.
Mm,
It made you feel like you belonged, like you stood for something, right? And I think that a lot of teenagers nowadays don't feel like they belong, like there's nothing for them to stand on, Because what do they have? Social media? That doesn't help them. It doesn't help you or me. It doesn't help our future. So we need to give them something to stand behind. Faith is great, but faith is not good if they don't understand it. So giving them the understanding of faith, I think, is huge. And for me, I've had faith my whole life. But I went away from it, and then I said, wait a minute, I've always been faithful. I pray every day. Maybe I'm no longer happy with the Catholic Church. I grew up Roman Catholic, but I was always like, there's something. I always looked at different things, and people said, try this, try that. I was like, I'm not feeling it. Every day I prayed, because one of the things I always remembered is that God is everywhere, and he's in me. So I'm like, I don't need to go to church. But then I always wanted, you want that community, right? So for me, I found the Bible. I picked it up, I read the whole thing, and I got mad at it, and I threw it away. Then I did it again. I threw it away. And then I said, you know what? I'm into podcasting. Why don't I listen to a podcast on how to read the Bible? So I found the podcast, 365 Days Reading the Bible, something like that.
Cool. Yeah.
And it changed. It changed the way so I picked up another Bible. I still have it. I was talking to a client, and they're like, oh, I go to this church. I'm like, oh, I'm going to check it out. And I went there, and it was a Bible study. It was a Christian church, and it was Bible study. And it wasn't in Latin, because when I grew up,
Right.
Roman Catholic, the priest would open up, and
different tradition. Yeah.
And he's reading, and he's reading, and he's reading. I'm like, I have no idea. He's speaking in Latin. I don't know Latin. He could be telling me about a joke. I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. Yeah. So I always felt the disconnection, right? But now when I go to church, I'm connected, because I bring my Bible, but I don't just bring my Bible. I bring a book, and I write down when the pastor's speaking about something. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Let me write it down. So for me, I found that faith, when we learn to understand it, truly, truly delivers. And I think that our youth needs something. I think that we can probably curb all this hatred in our lives if a young person found that they belonged.
There's a lot of wisdom in there, Raphael. And all I'll add is that I've experienced in my faith journey, both extremes in terms of really leaning into the letter of the law and the tradition around church and the religious side of church that turns a lot of people off. And then saying, well, it's not about that at all. It's Christ came in the spirit. It's about the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law. And it's, you do you in that regard, right? And kind of leaning into that side of faith. And what I've come to appreciate now, like many, many things in life, and it comes up in coaching all the time, it's not like one is right, one is wrong, there's only one is true. There's some beauty and real power in appreciation of some of the traditions of life that we enjoy, and that includes religious tradition. There's also power and beauty and freedom to say, you can also create something totally different, and you don't have to be constrained by that. And so I love both sides now, and I appreciate both sides. And so, it's the idea of like, yeah, if you only heard the Bible in Latin, you're going to miss out on the power of that word to understand it. But at the same time, I wouldn't say like it's a bad thing. Right. It can be a beautiful thing to hear the word spoken in Latin. If that touches your heart, if that connects you to the Father, awesome. If not everybody's going to resonate with that. And I certainly wouldn't recommend it be your only source of the word, because there's power in understanding it. But yeah, man, thanks for sharing that. It's really cool to hear your background in that.
When I heard that you went to a Christian church, I was like, a Christian school. I was like, oh, I know this guy's okay. Would it be okay if I shared something that we're doing in May, where I think that I would love for you to be part of it, by the way? Would it be okay if I shared it?
Raphael, please do.
All right, let's go for it.
Are you ready for an unforgettable experience that will inspire and motivate you? Look no further than Heroes Rising. This virtual event will showcase some of the speakers who will grace our stage in July. Join us May 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Heroes Rising brings together a lineup of incredible speakers and thought leaders who will share their wisdom and insights on how to become the hero of your own story. With topics ranging from personal development and leadership to entrepreneurship and social impact, this event has something for everyone who wants to make a positive difference in the world. Whether you're an aspiring leader, an entrepreneur, or simply someone who wants to be inspired and motivated, Heroes Rising is the perfect opportunity to connect with like-minded individuals and learn from some of the most influential voices in the industry. Don't miss your chance to be a part of this transformative experience. Get your tickets now and join us for Heroes Rising on May 12th.
Bam. So I think that there's a picture missing in that whole thing, and it's your picture, Zack.
Well, there's nothing better than bringing the voices of a whole, army of powerful people together to share their wisdom. So I would be honored to be a part. Let's talk about it.
We'll talk about it after the show, but here's the whole thing, right? I want to invite everybody, and I want to give everybody a complimentary ticket to come to the event. So I'm going to put it up on the chat. Anybody listening, do me a favor. Share your comments with us. Zack and I, we want to know, what are you thinking? Where are you listening to us from? Zack, you were talking before about live. It's definitely something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's something that, and we talked about the way people communicate their filler words, but can we use filler words differently? Can we pause? Can we, instead of curse words, and the reason I don't curse is because I know there's more powerful words that can still instill my message to really let somebody know how serious I am. People think that a curse word lets them know they're serious. No, it tells me that you don't have better words. What are your thoughts on that?
I love that left turn in this conversation and agree with you. When I hear someone, and not to disrespect their value or their worth as a human.
Absolutely.
But when I hear someone who litters every sentence with swearing and cursing, my response to that is that they have a shallow mind, that they haven't really gotten into a depth of knowing themselves or knowing truth or having something meaningful to say. Because to your point, it's a false power. It's a projection of power and authority by sounding aggressive or sounding cool or sounding intense. I don't know. I'm not sure what the energy is behind it, but yeah, it's not an authentic energy that draws me in to want to listen. And I know in comedy, for example, it used to be that you would throw in these curse words almost as a pattern interrupt, get people's attention, to throw you off balance. And a great comedian using swearing in the right way can, pull some more out of the audience and keep your attention. But it's become so common anymore. It's almost not a pattern interrupt. It's like you've done this thing that's just a low-hanging fruit to try to catch me, but then there's nothing else behind it. There's no power behind it. And so I'm with you. I think cursing has no place in most conversation. I don't recommend it. Probably the only time that might fit for me is when you hit your thumb with the hammer. That's the time. Like, if you need to say something, say it then, but otherwise I think you're absolutely right. It's not a powerful way to communicate.
Yeah. And I love what you're doing, and I want to get into that aspect, because your dad was a huge part of your life, of your thought process of, this is what I want to do. He opened your mind, if you will.
Yeah.
He opened your mind to a universe. Had your dad been a salesman, had your dad worked for, I don't know, as a mechanic, anything else, you may have not understood the beauty of what you do today, right? And even though, you know, your dad left when you were young, he still influenced you, right? He still left that desire to be, I want to be like my dad in a way, right? Because for me, every coach I've had has taught me one of two lessons. One, how to be. Two, how to not be. So that for me,
It's good.
and the people who've hurt me the most have taught me lesson number two, how to not be.
There's no question that even today, you know, the influence of those first 13 years is evident. And then to your point, some of the things that I grew to despise or even felt a sense of loathing towards were related to this. And those created a few good outcomes where I avoided bad behaviors and said I will never do some of the things that my dad did, etc. But it also created some places where I ended up mirroring exactly the things that my dad did and learned hard lessons. And the absence of fathering that I experienced through some critical years created gaps, you know, in how to be a great husband myself, and then became a huge part of my adult story. And that story being getting married right out of college to my college sweetheart, my ballroom dance partner in college at Purdue. We competed in ballroom dance together, and I was in love. I was infatuated. I was experiencing all the excitement of this, and got married right after I graduated and started into my career and seafood. Long story short, it went all the way down to my marriage collapsing, and one day, 5 years later, seeing my own note on the table from my wife saying, this isn't working. I want out. Let's get divorced. And so here I am now, an adult, 5 years out of college, married, reflecting back to age 13, my dad leaving my mom a note and all the pain and suffering. And here's this moment. That was my rock bottom burnout moment of my life. And, you know, these two moments are obviously connected, right? It's almost the exact same story. Like I walk into the note as an adult, and I told myself I would never get divorced because I hated divorce. I hated what it did to my childhood. I was so angry at what happened for so long. And even after healing from that, you still have that scar. And that whole thing got ripped open in that moment and, you know, hit a rock bottom. And the reason I'm a coach today is because of age 13, age 27, rock bottom, and the real journey then of personal growth began after that, to say, who am I? How do I want to be? How will I never be again? And my life has since been an incredible ride of success, and happily married now again, and so many things have changed. But just to connect that golden through line that you're highlighting, my dad is a big part of that. Even in his absence, he's a big part of how we got to today. And I am thankful for that. Of course, would never wish pain and suffering on people. I don't want people to go through hard things to get there, but at the same time, celebrating where pain creates the growth, where pain leads to peace, going through the pain. If you step up and you're willing to show up to the pain, there's power and peace on the other side. And so, I'm thankful for that role that my dad's played in both his presence and also in his absence.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that's when you when you're able, I'm thinking of a phoenix rising, right? That's you, man. I'm seeing that. And the fact that you realized, and I'm sure now you're happily married, and I like the fact that you said that, because that means to me that you're dating your wife.
Hmm.
So she's not just your wife, she's your girlfriend, she's your partner, she's your mate, she's your friend. So when we can be in love, right? That's, to me, that's everything. That's true love. When we can go and we can say how we truly feel. I think that's communication 101, where we can have that sustainable relationship. Because so many people, oh yeah, I'm married. Are you? Are
Oof.
you really? It's like, think of owning a business. You open the door, you turn on the lights, and you sit there and you wait for customers without marketing, without putting signs on it. If you open the door and there's no sign outside, people don't know. But if your sign doesn't explain what you want from your customers, then they won't. That maybe they'll walk in and go, "What is this place? What goes on in here?" But unless you're clear on your message, unless you're clear as to what you're doing, that's business. So marketing, and then also not only that, but keeping your customers. So to me, that's relationship. Same thing, right? Do I market myself to my partner? My girlfriend and I, we have an amazing relationship. I didn't used to have that. I am divorced as well. But the lessons that we learn is like, what do I want to do? What do I not want to do? What do I want? And then who do I want to be with? Right? These are questions you probably, without realizing it, whether you did or didn't, but you've asked them, right? You're muted. 1 second. Go
Sorry about
ahead.
that. Must have clicked a button when I wasn't paying attention.
Or
So,
either
see,
I did, one of
Raphael, what
us.
I loved about what you said there, and it's just it's coming to me in this moment, is the connection between the business example and the marriage example for me is love, and it's this part of our nature, the heart that we have, this most powerful organ in our body, and we
Mm,
talk about our heart. When you are in a real marriage, the kind of marriage that's thriving and loving, there's nothing quite like giving
mm,
love, to be actively in the experience of giving love to that person. It's so
mm.
rewarding. And
Oh,
in
yeah.
business too, to give your love for what you do, your love for the customer. You know, Tony Robbins at Business Mastery talks about, don't fall in love with your products and services, fall in love with your customer.
Right.
And when you do that, well, you want to market, you want to tell the whole world about what you do,
That's
because you
right.
just like, everybody needs this. I love this. I love how it changes people's lives. I love what and so, yeah, I think there's a connection there for me, that a part of our nature, one of the most fundamental things that's fulfilling in life, is when you can outwardly express love in a way that's unique to your, your calling, your purpose.
Mm,
That's so powerful.
yeah, yeah. So you married your sweetheart, ballroom dancing. I love that. That sounds like so much fun too. I'm a dancer because I just move with music, but I
That's
was
all you got to do.
never I was never taught classical dancing, right? If you will, like the tango and all these cool
Mm-hmm.
dance. I,
Mm-hmm.
I look at them, I'm like, oh man, that's got to be so much fun. And I've always said, one day I'm going to try that just for the fun of it, not to compete or anything. But when you're in that moment, when you're dancing with your partner, that connection, that connection is marriage right there. I know it because even though I'm not classically trained as a dancer, but when I move and my partner is moving with me, that unison, and that is sweet, sweet music right there.
There's more parallels than we could explore in another whole hour between dancing and life, dancing and relationship, dancing and business, dancing and coaching.
Right.
But yeah, it's a connection between two people, and it requires leadership. It requires a willingness to follow that lead, a willingness to play with those roles at times, and the man has this responsibility to be a frame for this incredible beauty of the woman, to be the picture. It's not about what the guy is doing in classical ballroom. It's about how you magnify the radiance and the beauty of that woman.
That's right.
And when you do that well, then it creates this virtuous loop where then the man has this sense of passion and power. This, he brings a confidence when it's really not even about him. And so then there's an attraction there as well. And the polarizing nature, we talk about being attracted to someone. Well, that, opposites attract. You need polarizing energy. And so that's what dance really, really brings, is this powerful but humble masculine with this radiant and expressive feminine. And then you can see that together and in harmony, right? They don't conflict. They attract, and it's when he moves, she moves. When she moves, he moves. It's really powerful. I think there's so much to learn from dance, and it applies in more ways than we have time to explore. It's awesome.
I'm glad we talked
and you should
about
totally do it, Raphael. It's fun.
I'm gonna.
Oh, it's so fun. I mean, it's a challenge, but it's worth it. I'll tell everybody, the first few lessons are pretty rough because you just don't know what you're doing at all, and it's really like your ego gets in the way. It's like, I stink at this, But if you just break through that initial edge of learning, get to where you can move with the music and you have the basics, it's so rewarding. Ballroom dance, Latin dance, swing dance, it's super fun.
You talked about dance, but I was thinking coaching. Similar, isn't it? When you think about coaching and what you do, and we still haven't gotten to what you're doing now, but we're going to get there.
It's all right.
In a second.
We'll get there.
No, we're going to get there, of course. But, when you think about coaching, the first few sessions, it's all about exploring. It's all about getting to know, right? When you sit with a new client, you don't, different coaches, different ways, but I'm imagining that you are the kind of coach who wants to know more about them than they even want to know about you. Of course, they want to know about you. They want to know if you can help them in the whole deal. But I think that you invest yourself in them in order to be the great coach that you are. Am I right?
At the end of the day, they only need to know enough about me to have 100% confidence and trust that I'm the right coach to help them get where they want to go. Once we've gotten that far, the whole rest of the relationship to me is about them. Of course, they want to know my story, and that's part of why I have the podcast and these different ways for them to really feel connected to me as a person. But yes, it's your story is what coaching is about. And not that I need to know your whole life history. In fact, one of the most beautiful things about coaching is that in many ways, those intricate details of everything about how you got here, only a few of them are really, really critical for us to understand. For the most part, people are surprised by how quickly you can pick up from this moment and build a new future. They think of coaching and they have this almost therapy or counseling like mindset about it. Like I need to spend the next 10 sessions unpacking my whole life. Not really. We can make a new choice right now in this session for your future. And so, I really am invested in knowing them in the present. I don't need to know your favorite color and favorite food when you were 8. We may get to those details just because we're building such an intimate relationship through coaching. But what we need to know is, who are you now? Who do you want to be? And where are we going to take action and shift that mindset and these behaviors and who you are to go get there? And so it's fun, and it's all about you. And if people ask me personal questions during a session, I always tell them, let's do that when we're hanging out. This time is about you.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I'm going to share another video, but I want to come back and I want to get into what made you. We know that your dad had a huge influence on you, but you pursued engineering. You pursued it. Let's get into that in a second or two, okay?
Heroes Rising Apex is the highly anticipated business event of the year. This gathering of industry leaders, entrepreneurs, authors, and visionaries promises to be a game-changing experience that will inspire, educate, and provide networking opportunities. Get ready to immerse yourself in a world of innovation, strategy, and collaboration as we embark on an unforgettable journey of learning, growth, and success. Join us in New York on July 14th through the 16th. Go to heroesrisingapex.com for tickets.
And that is the one we're doing May 12th first to like a prequel, if you will, right? Like a preview of what's to come in July. So everybody,
Amazing.
Yeah, get your tickets now for that one because that's going to be an amazing event in New York. But now I want to unpack you a little bit, right? You went college. What made you pursue engineering? And did you go initially for that, or was that even in high school? Was that a click for you?
Mm-hmm. There was very little time that I considered any other path than engineering. I had the knack, as we would joke about, when it comes to how things work, and very skilled with math and science, where other people would struggle with it. It just clicked for me. And guidance counselor in high school encouraged me to pursue engineering. And even though I had this lingering frustration and strained relationship with my dad through high school, it didn't change the fact that I still really felt called to that. I remember one conversation with my uncle, who was an entrepreneur and in business, and I played with this idea of, do I really want to do engineering, or would I rather go into business and study marketing and do that? And my uncle gave me really wise advice at the time. He said, Zach, listen, you are clearly excellent at what it would take to be an engineer. I'm sure you could be excellent at business as well. But if you go into engineering, you can always go back, get your MBA or go into business anytime. That's an easy path to go. But if you go into business and you decide later you want to be an engineer, that's a really tough transition. You basically have to start over and go back to school. It is one of the best nuggets of wisdom I could have received, and I'm so glad he just encouraged me to pursue that. And the engineering foundation, it really is powerful in its own field, but it serves you in any discipline you would ever want to go into, if it's medical, if it's business, if it's entrepreneurship. So went to Purdue and studied mechanical engineering. So my form of rebellion, Raphael, was instead of doing electrical engineering like my dad, I went into mechanical engineering. Stick it to dad, right?
But what a great advice your uncle gave you, and the way he even put it to you, so that, because a lot of people give advice and they're like, you should do this. But he explained why you should do it, which made sense. Lots of sense.
Yeah, exactly. Even for a 17-year-old, it made perfect sense. Yeah.
It's a good thing you listened.
Yeah, for sure. Really good. Really good. And it didn't hurt that Purdue offered me a full ride academic scholarship to go study engineering there. So it was like a pretty obvious decision. All the lights were green, pointing towards Zack being an engineer.
Right. They did not give you a scholarship because of your good looks. They gave you a scholarship because I know you think so.
I sent in my modeling shots, but they said, "Look, it really has nothing to do with that." Yeah,
it's your academics, right? So, wow, full scholarship. Good for you, man.
Thank you.
So, how does a young person nowadays aspire to do something that big, to get even like a partial scholarship is so hard nowadays, right? But just to pursue the career, even if they have to pay out of their own pocket or their parents' pocket or student loans and all this craziness that goes on, what inspiration can you give them so that they know, like your uncle gave you? If somebody's listening, if somebody says, hey, you know, my cousin or my nephew or my son needs to listen to this portion of this podcast because Zack is about to whip out some knowledge for them to understand the importance of pursuing it.
There are two things that immediately come to mind that changed and created those outcomes in my life. And while I'm certain that the landscape of college and scholarships has shifted from when I went through Purdue, I think these two principles remain constant. Number one, my mom was adamant through my entire grade school career, if you want to call it that, grade school life. Your first job is your schooling. Your second job can be whatever you choose. Sports, if you want to go get a job and make money, like anything. But as long as you're under my roof, your first job is academics. And if I was not getting straight A's, then I was not allowed to have a job or do anything else. It was like, and here's what my mom always told me, Zach, it's not about you must have A's. You must do your best. And I know that your best is A's because you're very smart. And so if you're not getting an A, then we're going to have a hard conversation about that. And it made sense to me. I never felt pressured. Like if I didn't get A's, my mom wasn't going to love me or anything. I didn't feel that way. I just really believed her. I have what it takes to get straight A's. And so that was my first job. And I really treated it that way, and I made school priority one. So that was the first piece. And then the second piece was, if you want college paid for, then let's do the work to make that happen. And my entire junior year of high school and first semester senior year of high school, my mom had me applying for scholarships. I had a minimum, I think it was like 4 scholarships a month minimum that I had to apply for the entire time. And so I was constantly out there finding, the Chick-fil-A scholarship, the hospital scholarship, like every little random thing. Some of them were just $500 or $1,000. Some were more, but I applied for all of them. And when I ended up going to Purdue, not only did Purdue give me the full ride for my academics, so job number one paid off, but all of my room and board and other expenses to go to college got covered by these other little random scholarships. And so here's what I'm saying. If what you want is to experience an easier path through your college career, both financially and with focus on a particular discipline, then make that your primary focus now. Don't wait until you're in college to figure it out and just take the loans because that's what everybody does. There are other ways, but you got to get resourceful. And if you'll commit yourself to that, and the challenge in high school when you're 15, 16, 17 years old is we struggle with discipline at all. And so I really do, again, I just, God bless my mom, and for that mom or aunt or uncle or person out there listening, it's like just to encourage that young person to say, listen, I know it's hard. I know you don't want to fill out the scholarship form, but imagine 2 different outcomes. My mom painted the picture for me. Outcome 1, you graduate and you've got 5 figures or 6 figures of debt to start your life with. Option 2, you put in a little time right now, study a little bit harder for that test, apply for that scholarship tonight before you go out with your friends, and you graduate debt-free. And you can actually begin your life and buy a house and do these things. What would that be like? And it took a few reps, but I really started to buy in to that being something that was worth it. And so
that's beautiful.
I think those are still true principles, regardless of how the college prices and scholarship landscape has changed. you can have a different story.
Oh, yeah.
Now, okay, let's zoom out, Raphael. This is important for everybody. We look at macro trends. Whether it's economic macro trends, in technology with my clients right now, a lot of people are losing jobs. It's tough. We look at macro, and it's useful because we learn from it, but then we apply the macro trend to our life. But here's the truth. Your life is a micro experience. You can have something different than what the world is getting on the macro. All right. It doesn't mean there won't be headwinds. It doesn't mean it won't be hard. It doesn't mean that the strategy might not need to change because of what's happening in the macro. But it is a lie to think that you are a victim to a macro trend. So college prices have gone up. Well, therefore I must need to be in debt when I graduate. Really? Really? Like, let's challenge that limiting belief. Technology is laying off people left and right. I'm lucky to just have a job. There's no way I can get a promotion. Really? Because I've got 10 clients who've gotten promotions in the last few months. Like, don't let a macro trend shape your life, because you are a unique experience and you can create different results than what other people are getting.
Wow. Wow. Powerful, my friend. Powerful. So now I want to get into, you went to Purdue. Well, mechanical engineering. I love it. I love it. I have a couple of friends who own huge businesses with mechanical engineering. And so I love what you're doing. And this is why I'm excited to talk to you today. What was your first job, if you recall? And what was the one lesson you learned there?
First role, right out of Purdue, I joined Whirlpool Corporation in what was called their World program, and it's spelled with an E, the Whirlpool Engineering Rotational Leadership Development Program. This was their top talent intake opportunity, and I joined the cooking product division as a test engineer for ovens. That's the work that I did, my very first job. Got into the lab and learned a lot about test procedures, design principles, and just a great opportunity. And every 6 months, I rotated to a new job for 2 years. So I did 4 jobs in 2 years as part of this leadership development program. And awesome experience to be able to go and learn a lot about the company, expand my network in the company a lot, fourfold what most people do in that time because of moving through these different divisions and different product categories. And then the best part was that Whirlpool then paid all expenses for me to go do my master's in mechanical engineering at the University of Michigan as a part of that offer. So that's where it all began.
That's awesome. That really is. When you think about what you went through growing up, the depression, but then you had this rock on your side. Mom was your rock. I mean, what a powerful woman to have. And God, but not everybody has your mom. I mean, at this point, I want your mom to be my mom.
Can't have her, Raphael.
I'm sorry. But I'm saying so many people don't have somebody in their corner.
Yeah.
You did. You're very lucky. You're very fortunate. And so when we think about what we can do and what sometimes we must do on our own, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't live with my parents since the age of 10. So for me, everything was, if I want it, I got to go after it, right? And this is my whole life. So I've learned along the way. It's almost like I said to somebody once, or actually they said to me, throw me out of an airplane. I have no problems. And they were very adamant. And I said, what are you going to do? And they said, I will build a parachute on my way down from my clothes. I'm like, all right, cool. So you're resilient. I like that about you. So that's something that some people don't have somebody in their corner. For example, a boxer, who do they have? They have their coach in the corner. right? Michael Jordan, who did he have? He had his coach. He wasn't great alone. No one, I believe, including me, who I didn't have my parents at the time. We all have someone that guides us. You've had your mom. Besides your mom, who else would you say was a factor in your success?
The first one, I'll go chronologically.
Sure.
My high school baseball coach,
Mm.
big factor in my success, the closest to a father figure during that time of my life, in many ways. The high school years, the college years at Purdue, was actually a time where peers, friends, were the most important people in my life at that time. And I had some great friends, people that I really loved and spent a lot of time with. And I would actually say, looking back, there was an absence. I allowed a void to step in of having men speaking into my life at that time, and really just fell into the excitement and the academic rigor and kind of a peer group level, which was fun and great, and they were inspiring, but it left me with a gap in terms of the wise, older, experienced voice to speak into my life at that time. Then my mom remarried, and my stepdad, Mike, who's, you could do a whole interview on his life. He's a retired 3-star admiral from the Navy. He was an aviator, flew F-14 Tomcats. The guy, he's got a whole lifetime of incredible experiences. And Mike, it's no surprise he and my mom are together now because he is a rock as well. And
Nice.
and so he's been there for me in ways that were way above the call of duty to step in as a stepdad to adult children, and just awesome. And then as an adult now, the people that I have had throughout the entire journey would be my grandfather, always there, and as an adult leaning more into just spending time and learning from him. He's still alive. He's 96, not doing great now, but just awesome to have had him around.
Right.
And then my best friend Dave. My best friend Dave. He's a business partner of mine now. He's one of the smartest guys I know, and he and I have gone through a lot together. And he's the person that I talk about being fully known. He's the person I'm fully known with. We don't have any secrets between each other. We're absolutely honest about everything, and that kind of relationship is really important, to have at least one person who you can be fully known with.
Oh yeah, that's huge. That's huge. So Zach, you're. I love the fact that you were at Whirlpool and you went from one position to a different, to understand another company. I mean, that's brilliant on their part, right? If you think about
sure.
business, right? What possessed you to say, I'm going to coach and I'm going to help people? What was it?
If we back up, 20 minutes ago, I mentioned my own divorce and this rock bottom burnout experience. Well, besides seeing a counselor and dealing with the grief and figuring out, how did I just manifest this thing in my life that I never wanted to happen, and going through all of that, I also hired my first coach at that time. Because, Rafael, a big part of what led to that burnout was I was very passionate about my career. I really wanted to succeed. I had replaced the academic focus with a career focus. I had always been a straight A student. Well, now it was time to go be a super successful engineer, get the promotions, get the growth, be seen as the top performer. And I wanted that. I really did. But I did it in a way that led to extreme disappointment, depression, and burnout again, right? Well, I hired this coach and said, look, I just went through divorce, dealing with all this baggage. But one thing that I know is I still want to be successful. I'm not done. I don't want to stop here. I've got a long life and career ahead of me, and I need a different approach. I need to do this in a different way. And I found a coach who could help me to approach my career with the same vision, but take a whole new strategy, a whole new mindset, a whole new set of tools. And that coaching absolutely transformed the trajectory of my life. My career exploded. I had 5 promotions in 5 years. I had doubled my income. I got every opportunity I wanted. I mean, I was loving it. And I was working less hours. I was making time to get back into a healthy, intimate relationship, and then got remarried, traveled more. I mean, everything. It was awesome. And so you asked, like, how did I get into coaching? Well, being coached was so transformational. I said, well, I want to learn how to do this so that I can start supporting the people on my team. I mean, as a senior manager in engineering, I had a team of engineers here. I said, hey, if I could coach them, not just manage them, that's going to be an asset for me in my career. And then I fell in love with the process of coaching and just said, man, like, this is so rewarding. This is so fulfilling. And in that journey, discovered that my real purpose in life was not around the engineering and technology, but around what I could bring to these other leaders, these other people that I was around, in helping them to move forward towards their goals and dreams. And the Oasis of Courage, which is the name of my company, that concept was born in doing life purpose development with my coach back in those days, and just framed up this metaphor that I am an oasis along the journey of life that gives you the courage to keep walking, to take that next step. That refreshing fountain, that place to recharge and renew the energy that you need to take a courageous step back into the challenges of life. And I just love doing that. And so that passion grew. My engineering career was growing. And there was a point then in 2019 where I said, look, I really believe that the calling of my life is not in the technology anymore. It's not in the engineering. It's in the people. And I want to do that full time. And so I left what was an incredibly, fast moving, great career path. I mean, even my mom, The Rock, was like, what Zach, are you sure? Are you sure about this? Like, is this the right move? But she always believed in me, and she was extremely supportive. But yeah, I stepped away from a lot of money and a lot of success to go do this full time in coaching, because I just knew that was the real, purpose for my life.
I really seriously love the name of your company, if you will, Oasis of Courage, because you thought of it. It wasn't just like what name popped up, but there's emphasis on what you're doing and how you're helping people. Who would you say are the people that you help the most?
There's 2 answers to that question. The first answer is, who has so far been the people that I've seen the biggest transformation in? And those are the people at the extremes. So extreme number 1 is the top talent, the person who's crushing it, who wants more, says, you know what, I have a huge vision for my career in life, and I want every advantage I can get, and I want to learn from other people's mistakes before I make them so I can dodge these huge hurdles, right? So that person who's already hungry, they get transformational results from coaching. The other extreme is the burned out, absolutely crushed. They've been through hard times. They're in a toxic situation, and they just have reached the end of their rope. They don't know what to do. They feel stuck. They feel lost. They feel confused. They're frustrated. That person who doesn't see a way out, who's lost their passion for engineering completely, that person experiences transformational results. So inspiration and desperation. Those are 2 points where I see clients consistently, radically change their life in such a short amount of time.
Wow, beautiful.
The other answer, though, Raphael, is that if I'm being honest, the person who who probably needs this the most and does not take action is that person whose life is just okay. It's the golden handcuffs person. It's the one who's been 10 years at the same company and the same job doing the same thing, who wakes up every day and says, well, this is life. I got to work to live, and they've just been just in this place of boredom. But it's just good enough that they're unwilling to change it, because to change is more scary than to deal with the fact that they have no more sense of enthusiasm or adventure or growth. And that's the one who breaks my heart the most, because the people who are desperate, they're going to get help from somebody, right? And the people who are inspired, they're going to keep growing, whether it's with me or not. The people that really call my heart and that I'm passionate to reach is to wake up these people in the middle. Say, look, like, good enough. Is that all there is to your life? Really? Is that all you want, is just, I can get by? Because that's not the life that I feel called to live. And I've seen people who come out of that place, and it makes me so happy to watch them go to a whole new level.
That's huge. That's huge. I own a wood shop, so I've had carpenters work for me. And they do something and they'll say, oh, that's good enough. I'm like, yeah, you don't want to work for me then. I said, because we are precision, right? And you know this about mechanical engineering, right?
Totally.
So, when I build something for someone, I give them a guarantee as a woodworker. If it ever gets damaged or anything ever falls apart, I will fix it absolutely for free. In all the years, I've never had one call for somebody for me to fix anything, because I take the care to give them not only what they were looking for, probably even better than the results they wanted, but the quality and the precision that go into it. That's the difference between somebody that I would have work for me and somebody who would not work for me. Because if they say it's good enough, you know what? You're sloppy.
Yeah.
I don't want you.
Yeah. Well, and it says something about the kind of person who's willing to stand behind what they do at the level you just described. I love that.
I mean, people call me back because they want something else, not because there's ever been a problem.
Exactly.
What a great conversation you and I have had. We've only literally touched the surface of what you and I can talk about. I think that not only on this show, but I would love to have you come on many of my other shows. I am kind of plugging my other shows as well, but not for anyone else, but for you, because I think you would be great on them. And I definitely want you at Heroes Rising Apex, both in May and July, because when we think about leveling up, and you talked about purpose earlier, if we don't know our purpose, and I talked earlier on one of my shows, and I talked about people don't know their purpose, but I leave them with this. If your purpose is to live on a straight line, then you're bored. You have nothing to look forward to. But if your purpose is to live an abundant and beautiful life, then you need to go further and deeper and reach new heights, no matter how scary they are, right? Because, listen, climbing to the top of a mountain, of a building, of a tree, of anything, it's not easy. And sometimes you will need help. Like my friend Zack will help you for sure. So everybody reach out to Zack. We know we put his website across the screen. Zack, you are an exceptional coach. And I know that just by the conversation we've had, and I know we're going to have many more. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Raphael, this has been awesome. Thank you for being willing to open up the parts of my story that don't get shared that often. And I just love the work you're doing, man. You're changing lives, and it's a pleasure to be a part of it. So thanks again for your generosity and the invitation.
Yeah, buddy. Thank you. Have an amazing and blessed day. But stay on, because we're going to say goodbye to everybody, but I want to chat with you for a sec.
You got it.
All right, buddy. Have an amazing, exceptional day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye-bye. Oh, you're still there? I'm kidding.